also an EUL qualifier here in Modena in Italy. We've just changed casters. I'm Yari Wrench from the European Unity League, and we have Sam.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam. I'm a UK-based modern grinder, so if you're around in the UK, you've probably seen me trying my best not to O2 an event. But yeah, thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to watch some modern action on a Sunday afternoon. I couldn't think of anything better.
Awesome. Well, I think the players are already ready, so let's go down to the feature match already and see what's going on. It seems we have Boros Energy against White Black Dasse, whatever that means.
Yeah, that's
Probably
not something I'm familiar with, but starting from from the Boris side, having a turn on Ragavan is essentially how you'd like to start most matchups. I've just seen in the white-black deck, I saw Felia and we're fetching a Goddess Shrine, so it might be the white-black Flicker deck, which is one of Modern's hottest new decks, really. Have you tried this matchup yourself, Yari? What do you think of this?
It's not really the decks that I play myself, to be fair. I've mostly played Breach in the past months. But I've played a lot of different decks in the past, so I'm kind of familiar with like the play style of these types of decks, which I assume it's the Texas deck. Oh, we get an ad. That's not good.
Just before that, we saw a Witch Enchanter, a Fatal Push onto the Ragavan, and then a turn 2 Witch Enchanter. It's a very aggressive play against Boros Energy, so that would almost suggest to me that maybe we had the answer for the Ragavan, but we don't actually have the second land to go through or to start developing our game plan. The white-black Flicker deck is really strong when it gets going, but it really needs those pieces step by step to get going. And the 2-drop slot is vital. You have Felia, you have the Overlord of the Baelmerk that you can impend. So yeah, that does suggest to me there's no second land there.
Does it work? No, it doesn't work. Oh my god. Yeah, sorry, a bit of technical difficulties here. We're using we're just restreaming the. Is it not working? All right, so I think now I got it fixed. So does it work now? All right,
yeah.
Perfect.
So we saw the Ragavan get fatal pushed, which is essentially a perfect answer for a card like Ragavan, and then into an Orcish Bowmasters. And then a bit of a slower start from the Boros Energy side. No Ajani, no Bombardment, no Guide or Pride. So it looks like we were leaning pretty heavy on that Ragavan. So that in a fail push looks pretty brutal from the Energy side.
What do you think about... so I think the Texas player is the play, right? It appears. So
yeah,
does it make sense to fatal push the Ragavan and then play an Orcish Bowmaster when the Orcish Bowmaster can just kill the Ragavan? Like, what do you think play in particular?
So the aggressive fatal push sort of suggests that maybe the Orcish Bowmaster was drawn after we decided we had to commit that fatal push to the Ragavan. But Orcish Bowmasters isn't ideally... I know that it can deal 1 damage and it can kill a Ragavan or an Ocelot Pride, which are some of the strongest starts Boros Energy can have. But Boros Energy doesn't really draw extra cards. Its card advantage essentially comes from threat into threat. So it does suggest that it was drawn after we fatal push, but if there's no other threat on the table, then casting it here and just getting in for 2 and starting to start that long road of winning a game against Boros Energy is... you got to use your tools how you draw them.
That's true, yeah. It might also be that he just wants to be mana efficient. I mean, like the Bowmaster kills a lot of creatures of the Boros deck. So if the Boros deck goes like Ragavan into a Johnny, you can kill a token as well and be more mana efficient. So that might also be a reason why he opted to play the push on turn 1. It was a bit unlucky that he didn't, that Michele didn't have any follow-up on turn 2, so the Bowmaster was played into nothing. Or maybe that was intentional as well.
Yeah, it looks like we were leaning quite heavily on that Ragavan. A turn 2 tap land from Boros is never where we want to be, but we do see the Mon Horizons 3 Titan here, Ajani, bringing along a 2-1 Cat Warrior with them, and completely blanking this Orcish Bowmasters now. You can attack, or you can ping the token, but then we transform this Ajani. So Ajani's such a strong card, and it really does stop the bleeding from what we see against 3/1/1 creatures in play.
Totally.
So from the white-black taxes side, Ajani's definitely an answerable card, but I do feel like it needs to be answered now rather than later. Maybe someone like a Solitude here would be perfect. But as I mentioned, this taxes deck really wants to get the engine started, and this looks like a Flicker Wisp on the stack to maybe get that going and sort of get on over the Ajani here. From the Boros Energy side,
so he probably has a removal, it seems like, to kill the
recruiter. This is a dangerous start when you start to mix your recruiter with your Flicker Wisp, and it can just really get out of hand from here. So I imagine we're going to see a Galvanic Discharge in response. But from the Boros side, you don't really want to... Yeah, there we go. A Discharge to eat the recruiter. But from the energy side, this really isn't the ideal start from yourself. I wonder how really like a Flage would be fantastic here.
Yeah, so he draws. Let's see if he can pull up this Flage. I mean, like a lot of the cards from Boros Energy that he plays on turn 3 are also Fable and Seasoned Pyromancer, both of which are not the best when you're staring down at Orcish Bowmaster.
Yeah, very true. It's sort of these looting effects that can, if we were to play Seasoned Pyromancer or a Fable and Millbreaker here, that could be sort of an answer to the Ajani, but we see the incredibly strong best friend of Ajani, Goblin Bombardment here instead.
Yeah, so that will allow him to transform the Ajani by sacrificing a cat and triggering this die trigger that whenever a cat dies, you get to transform it. And also take at least one creature down with it.
Yeah, exactly. But the Orzo creatures all have the toughness of 1, being able to trade this cat, flip Ajani, take out the Flicker Wisp, and then having the red permanent in play, which is exactly what we see. So we're going to sacrifice the cat token, target the Flicker Wisp.
Yeah.
If there's an Ephemerate here, oh wow, okay. So we see...
But that's painful. Like now you would have been really happy to have this push.
Yeah.
Get rid of the Ajani, and now you trade your whole board and your whole hand for it.
Yeah, it's... This is the respect that Boros Energy demands from players and from cards. You have to match their threats with your answers, and we've been able to do that on the white-black side, but it's cost us everything to do so. So
let's see, just another land that I assume can get another survey land.
Yeah.
So Michele probably also gets a survey land now, I guess.
Yeah, surveilling from each side. At this position, though, with both players sort of running on empty a little bit, I think I'd much rather be in the Boros Energy seat here. So if we're surveilling, what's the best find here? Surveil to the top.
Well, he just found it, didn't he?
Oh, is that Flage into the bin?
Yes, I think he surveilled a Flage into the graveyard, which is, yeah, as you named it, the best thing you can surveil at this point of the game, when you already have 5 cards in the graveyard to escape it.
And this is the strength of Boros Energy. I just want to say as well, Surveil lands being an Entomb that you can't counter is an amazing feeling. So I imagine it's just, if you've never done it before, it feels amazing. But Flage is going to be very difficult for the white-black player to answer here. I guess one good Surveil deserves another. So if maybe we could Surveil a Solitude to the top, this could be an answer to Flage. But even its Guide of Souls attacking, buffing itself up to 3 power as a flyer is just threats upon threats, and we're on 5 life, so this is 2 creatures you have to answer very quickly to not just be out of this game.
Yeah, definitely. So let's see what can be found. But yeah, I think Michele also has more cards in hand, so you not only need a Solitude, but you also need... Oh, that's not a bad answer. That's a Skyclave Aberration, exiling the...
Oh, hang on. I think this is just lethal. We ping down to 4, and then we attack for 3 in the air, and then use a gun. Yeah. use bombardment as a final piece of damage there. What a just monstrous game from Boros Energy there.
Yeah, sacrificing the Flage so that it doesn't get exiled and ping on damages. Yeah, makes the card not very effective, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess this might be the issue from the white-black point of view, is that Boros Energy has some fantastic starts, but it also has a fantastic late game. The deck almost operates in waves. So wave 1 is the Guide of Souls Ocelot Pride. Wave 2 is the Goblin Bombardment Ajani. And then when we're moving on to hard casting Flages and escaping Flages from the graveyard, it's really hard to keep up. And this white-black deck operates like an engine. We saw the Flicker Wisp attempt to flicker the Recruits of the Guard, and then from there we could get another flicker piece. And once that engine gets going, it's incredibly strong and incredibly hard to disrupt. But a timely bombardment, being able to sort of pick off the pieces along the way, is really how the Boros Energy player wants to play this game.
Yeah, let's have a look at the deck list if you can find them. Let me just pull them up quickly. 1 second. There we go. That should be working. Oh, that's not good. All right, there we go. Does that work? Oh, that doesn't work. All right, let's just. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so is that the? Oh no, that's just a random deck list. All right, let me find it. The names were. Yeah, let's just go back to the stream quickly until I found the deck list. So it was. Position tab. So it was Mario Bidoni and.
Typically, with a sideboard like Boros Energy, a deck like Boros can be quite weak to someone like Combo. So Boros's Energy is typically made up of a bunch of cards that would stop them losing to Storm or Belcher or anything like that. So maybe we'd see Orim's Chance, Stony Silences, maybe. Clarion Conqueror is a new one that I imagine both players will be playing. But there's a really important card that I want to see if people think, which is Wrath of the Skies. Yeah, we see one in the sideboard there. So essentially, we want to see a repeat of what we've done in that first game, which is keeping off the threats one step at a time, or be prepared to go on to a later game if we get to that point. So I really like the Wrath of the Skies here. This is a good way to clear up that engine once it's in motion. And I really like the Showdown of the Skulls. It helps us find our cards like Wrath of the Skies, and it helps grind to that late game if we get there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree. You want to have a more of a late game in this matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Question is what you want to cut in this matchup. I imagine the Static Prison might not be the best card because when it gets killed, you get back a creature that has an enters the battlefield trigger.
Yep.
And it also doesn't play very nicely with the Wrath of the Skies.
Yeah, very true. And if we see that game where we do want to get to a later game, Static Prison can really lose some steam on turn 7 or turn 8 if maybe we don't have that much energy.
Yes, it means we definitely have only limited energy.
What do you think about the Voice of Victories in this matchup? I don't think this is their place to shine. I think it's going to be very tough for us to attack through so many blockers and flicker effects. So I could imagine those coming out as well.
That might very well be. I think I was still a bit confused by this card, but I feel that the ability that your opponents can't cast spells during your turn is not really the reason why people play it. It's more like the fact that the Mobilize 2 is just very strong in comparison with it's good with the Goblin Bombardment, but also the Guide of Souls.
Yeah,
at least that's how I understood the power of this card so far.
Yes.
So to me, it still seems like more of a standard card. So I'm I'm interested to see how this card shakes out in the future, whether players will play it more or less. Because to me, it seems maybe not strong enough. What is your opinion about the card? Do you feel like it has a home in Modern, or is it just a bit of a gimmick that people like to play because the set came out recently, Dragons of Dark Dragonstorm?
I think it's still open for discussion, honestly. As you mentioned, it's got some synergies. It does really nice things with Ocelot Pride. You get to, if you hit the City's Blessing, you're able to duplicate those tokens at the end of turn, and they're red permanents for Ajani as well, which can be very relevant. I'm personally not sold on the card yet. I think that Boros is essentially Modern's version of old school Jund. Every card is worth playing. Every card can almost take a game out by itself. And as strong as Voice of Victory is, we don't see too many counter spells unless you're up against Mono Blue Belcher or something like that, or Frog. And Frog can just answer it with a Fatal Push. But yeah, I think maybe in time we'll see. But talking about cards that can take the game away, we see a Ocelot Pride from the Boros Energy start, and I imagine that this has been Fatal Pushed. Yeah, we can see the Fatal Push in the graveyard there as well.
I think it's a different art from the earlier one, but
yeah, I think that's the Assassin's Creed art, which is actually quite nice.
And what is the land that he corrected? Some sort of fetch land.
That's Flooded Strand into Godless Shrine there. I have to say, I love full art and love alternate art, so I'm happy to call those out as we see them.
Yeah.
Into gorgeous planes as well.
One of our altered EUL Flooded Strands.
Yeah.
If you would like.
So we just see planes go, and then is that Arid Mesa go into Felia? Wow.
Felia being galvanic discharged immediately.
Sort of, as we mentioned, that during sideboarding, we want to get to the late game. So these threats that can take over a game, we've seen respect from both players to get those out the way and try to make it to those later turns. But an amazing follow-up to removal spells, Overlord of the Baelmerk. This card has been crazy. Have you had the chance to play with this yet?
Kind of, yes. In Standard a bit. I played the Esper Pixie deck, which played one copy, but yeah. If you the true goal, I think, is to just blink it with like something like a Flickerist, but Mario just turned his hand, which is very, very strong.
Yeah, and just a Overlord of the Baelmerk is such a strong response to a 1-for-1 removal spell, and that Impending Trigger, it's either going to come out as soon as we Flickerist this, or it's going to be here in 4 turns anyway, which is something that Michelle has to prepare for.
Let's see what the Surveil hits. Not a Flage this time around.
Yeah, not a Flage this time around. You can only get lucky once. So that's another Ocelot Pride in the graveyard, which I think is just as strong as that card is, it's not going to do too much against that Overlord there.
The Ocelot Pride is really a card that changes a lot of things when it comes to when it comes to the card, I think the power level of the card varies a lot when comparing when you have like God of Souls or like a Flage or something against life or like a Golem Bombardment. Like sometimes it really scales a lot to just like be really, really powerful, and sometimes it's just a 1/1 that the first strike and it gets just blocked by like something.
Yeah, it gets blocked pretty easily by 1/2.
And then it's just very abysmal. And it also trades for the Bowmaster. So it's something you want to have on turn 1, and ideally as a follow-up with like some of your other cards, and otherwise you just put it in the graveyard.
Ocelot Pride is a great card at snowballing. But when you're taking this slower game, turn 1 into Guide of Souls into second Ocelot Pride is a really strong start for energy, and a start that most modern decks would have trouble keeping up with. But if the first one's been answered and it's getting to turn 4 or 5 and there's no board presence, it's just not going to be good enough in most situations, especially when we see that Overlord in play, which is likely going to be flickered. Ocelot Pride is either as you mentioned, it's the best card you're playing or something you really don't want to see. And that's exactly what we see on the Orzhov side is that Flickerwisp coming in, turning that Balemerc into a creature, returning another creature from the graveyard, which we see as a Solitude. And it looks like the Ajani was answered in amidst this as well, which is just... And we've missed a good couple of land drops from the Boros side. It would take a really good sequence of draws to get out of this rut that we find ourselves in.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, the most powerful part about the Flickerwisp is also just that, that it removes all the counters, so you can directly attack next turn and just get another trigger from the Overlord, which is really strong.
So we see Fable and Mirrorbreaker. This, if there was a way that I was going to get back into this game if I was on the Boros side, this Fable is an incredibly strong card, and I think is ideally our best play right now.
Yeah. I think the first thing that needs to happen is finding some sort of answer to the Overlord, because that's just gonna pull you apart.
It's gonna cascade. Yeah, it's gonna completely. It's currently the king or queen in this game of chess as we see, and it's just gonna absolutely take over if not answered soon. The Fable does let us dig for a removal spell though, but let's say we were to draw a removal spell. How do you feel about just casting it in front of a four open mana
there? Sorry, I didn't quite get your question. So like casting.
So yeah, so being able to, it's nice to draw a removal spell for the Overlord, but the black-white deck plays cards like Ephemerate,
fair enough,
or Flickerwisp, or so we see a Bowmaster's pick.
Yeah, you just need to be worried about the Ephemerate, but I think you already know two of the cards, the Solitude and the Bowmasters. So the odds are not that high, and I think you probably just can't win anyway. If they...
Yeah, very true. We see an interesting one milled over from the Orzhov player side, which is the Orim's-Chant. How do you feel about this one in the matchup?
I mean, traditionally speaking, it's a card played against combo decks, and Boros actually is not a combo deck, so it's interesting for me to see this card in this matchup. But I'm sure Mario had a reason to bring it.
Yeah, I think it might be really for that kicker cost where creatures can't attack. Bit of a flavor text line on Orim's-Chant most of the time, but its face side is that, can't cast spells, and then that kick side is you can't attack. So this might be a way of preventing a lethal attack for a turn. So
yeah, maybe that's his reasoning.
So we have the Fable trigger in a stack.
Yes, and I think he's thinking about whether he wants to draw cards because of the Bowmasters is in play. So if you draw 2 additional cards, it will just mean your Goblin Shaman will be pinged, which he might not want to do, or maybe just.
And I think we see no draw, no discard, no draw there. It's such a chokehold that this Orzhov deck operates almost like a boa constrictor. It just slowly closes the game out, and seeing it's looked really impressive this game actually. So
2 Ajanis, so that will mean we get a flipped Ajani, but then one will die and the other one will get solituded, I guess is what we're seeing. So that means that we do not get to flip Ajani, which is what Michaela was hoping for, which would have been one of the ways to come back into this game by making a cat and shooting damage at the creature. But without this, Mario's going to get yet another trigger from the Overlord to return another creature, and it's getting harder and harder with every turn to his Sankin card advantage, grounding card advantage.
Emperor Bones here might just prevent a lethal attack. Being able to eat the Solitude, then put the Solitude into play, or even better, second Overlord. So this is return at minimum we can get,
because then you get like another attack, which means another 4 milled and another creature returned to hand, which makes it harder.
That'll do it.
get winning a game. In the meantime, we can maybe quickly look at the deck list of Mario Bisono, which we haven't seen yet. So he plays 3 Wrath of the Skies in his iPod. Interesting. 2 Indicates, 3 Thoughtseize, 2 Arms Chant, and March of the Otherworld Light, Thalia, and Thraven Charm, and 2 White Orchid Phantom. So what do you think are the cards to bring in against Boros from this deck?
So we've already seen that the Orange Chants have come in, but I like playing it the same way that we suggested Boros Energy sideboard. So these Wrath of the Skies can really take over the game if cast at a pivotal moment, because it could clear absolutely everything, including the pesky enchantments or artifacts that we see Boros Energy play. So I like the Wrath of the Skies a lot. White Orchid Phantom could be tech for Arena of Glory, but I think that might be a little too cute. Thraben Charm is incredibly versatile in the matchup. We can see it as a removal spell for an Ajani or a Guide of Souls, but it's also some form of graveyard hate for the Flage if there's one that's been exposed. And I really like this March of Otherworldly Light as well, because if a Flage gets into play, we can remove it by exile, or it can be a 1 mana or 2 mana removal spell for a 1-drop. So just improving my removal spells overall, and then having those Wraths in as a way to completely blow out an aggressive start from the Boros side.
Yeah, I think I also like the Wrath of the Skies. I think the March of the Otherworld Light makes sense to exile the Flages, and the Thraben Charm also exiles the Flages and the creatures, or kills the creatures. So all of those sound good to me.
The question from the Orzhov side, though, is what are we cutting here? Because the deck operates like an engine, and a lot of the cards here seem pretty good against Boros Energy anyway. I could see trimming maybe the one-ofs, Orchid Phantom and Aven Interrupter, but they do both have utility in the matchup. How would you approach this?
Yeah, I think the White Orchid Phantom to me is more of a card that you play against like a very land-based deck where the land structure matters a lot, which I don't think is that relevant because I think they play at least 3 basics these days. It treasures basics, right? That's what the card does.
Yeah, it destroys non-target.
Yeah, so so I think I would definitely cyber out this card and probably the Aven Interrupter. It's another card that's more of like an anti-combo card, I think.
Yep.
It has merit against Flage, for example, I'd say. So maybe it's still reasonable to play it. I mean, if you can get a Flage on the stack, it's really
Yeah.
Because you will have to play it and it goes back to the graveyard and you have to escape it again. It takes a lot of time. Yeah. I'm not sure what that last card is that I would cut, but that's probably some roughly.
I could see in a matchup like this completely trimming on the Aether Vials. If we're bringing in a fleet of toolboxy removal spell for certain situations, I could see the value of Aether Vial going down quite a bit.
Yeah, especially because if you bring Wrath, which kills the Vials, you probably want to take out the Vials. Yeah, totally agree. You should probably take out the Vials, and then you have the 6 cards that we will often need to bring in.
Yeah. One thing I actually really like about this list, just what I have on the screen, is the 1 copy of Ketchamos, the New Dawn in the main. When this deck existed a little bit before Aether Drift came out, but then when Ketchamos was spoiled and then tested by players, people really, really liked it. And, it was uncommon to see it unless it was a 4-of, but I actually really like the discipline to play only 1. It's a pretty rough meta game for Ketchamos at the minute, but I like the idea of playing only 1. It's something I really struggle with, is cutting those 4-ofs down. You want to be able to cast your cool mythics and cool cards, especially if the new ones. But yeah, I think 1 Ketchamos is a really disciplined decision.
Definitely. All right, I think the players are ready, so let's head back to the stream, I guess. They're still taking mulligan decisions. It seems to be 7 and 6, so I think we're taking the decision on which card to put back at the bottom of the deck. I think Kettermos is also interesting. I think he has it in hand in this matchup. I think that means he's mulliganing to 5.
Yeah.
Kettermos is also interesting in this matchup because when they exile 5 cards to get the Flage back, it will be a creature. And that's a pretty strong thing to have. Like when they play the Flage, you have a 4/4 lifelinker that is indestructible.
Yeah, and if Ketchamos is online, it's a pretty difficult card for Energy to deal with. Essentially, we've discussed how maybe cards like Static Prison come out in the matchup because you don't want to get to that late game. But if Ketchmos is active late game, it's pretty difficult for the Boros Energy deck to deal with. So we see a mulligan to 5. How do you feel mulligan to 5 against a deck like Energy?
It's not great, I guess. Still a very attrition-based matchup, so you need some time to get back those resources through playing the overlords. But that said, I mean, at least you're on the draw, and it's just mulling the 5. So, like, depending on the draws, it's still something that's winnable.
For sure. And I think that when we've seen such impactful cards from the sideboard, like Wrath of the Skies, that could really answer an aggressive draw from the Boros Energy player, I like the idea that mulliganing with discipline in mind and trying to find one of those catch-all cards could be fantastic in the matchup. But we see, again, the turn 1 Ocelot Pride. I think that's all 3 games in a row, which is just exactly where you want to be as the Boros Energy player. Importantly to note as well, it hasn't eaten a removal spell yet, which suggests that there might not be one in hand.
There we see the Goblin Bombardment, so which is going to pair nicely with the cats that we're making. Is Mario thinking about playing that Solitude on the cat? Sounds a bit aggressive, but I mean, you're already down so many cards.
Yeah, it'd be a very aggressive play.
I think he also has an Ephemerate, so maybe he's planning to wait to cast the Solitude together with the Ephemerate so that you're not down on cards. But it's going to be tough to do so when there's a Golem Bombardment in play that can sacrifice the creatures. So
I think that's maybe why we were seeing the pause there, because now there's 2 creatures in play, Ephemerate and a Solitude. It gets pinged for 2 irregardless. So if you know, it's a bit of a dance between Goblin Bombardment and Ephemerate, but now that we see 2 creatures in play, that line is a bit worse because we're going to lose the Solitude regardless. So we see Surveil of the Plains in the bin.
He has the Wrath of the Skies, so that's, if he gets one more land, that's going to be an excellent way to get it back into this game. Though it seems to be that he only has more online cards. So I think he surveilled the planes of the graveyard and then drew the Wrath of the Skies. Otherwise, you would definitely keep the planes.
Yeah, for sure. We see Ophelia hiding out in hand as well, or as the powerhouse from last game, Overlord of the Baelmerk, picking up a land, which feels completely unfair. So now we have that 3rd land for that Wrath of the Skies. So,
but you might actually still need a 4th land, right? Because you also want to get the bombardment. So I think that the best thing, I guess, for the Wrath of the Skies is really to get to like the 4th land. So we'll see whether Mario is patient and waits another turn to play it, or whether it just get slammed immediately.
I think it really comes down to this next set of turns. If there's a second Ocelot Pride played and maybe a Guide of Swords, I think Mario is essentially forced to Wrath of the Skies for 1, which doesn't feel fantastic. But if maybe there's a Flicker-Wisp for the Overlord to put maybe some blockers in line for these cats, then I could see waiting as well. So I think it really comes down to this turn. Oh, and is that Najani? Yeah, that's so strong here.
Yeah, that's probably then just game over, more or less, because that means like another ping.
Yeah, so ping to 18,
like
flip
2 more
Ajani
turns to Wrath the board, and Ajani is just going to survive the Wrath of the Skies either way. So it's going to be pretty hard to get back into the game.
There's a chance. So there's potentially a Solitude here, but this is a strange dance now between the 2 players, because with the trigger and the stack, if we Solitude the Ajani, we can sacrifice another cat to flip the Ajani again, which is just not ideal. I think that this is just not ideal in any way.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, maybe you just need to cast a Wrath of the Skies now and just take care of these 3 creatures, but at this point it's probably just too little too late even anyway, because you still have to deal with the bombardment and Ajani that's in play.
Yeah, and even if there's a world where we get out of this, the Boros Energy player is still drawing and casting cards. So this, as I mentioned before, this deck operates in waves. So even if we get to a world where Wrath of the Skies can eat up the board, the remaining waves could be enough for the Oars of deck to struggle with. I think at this point it would have to be a really strong combination of cards to get out of this situation, and that's a huge ask when we saw Mulligan to 5.
Yeah, for sure. All right, there we go.
So Surveil, is that a Fatal Push put into the graveyard from the Surveil? That can't feel fantastic. So I think this is what you were saying in the terms that we need to hit that 4th land to be able to completely wipe the board away with this Wrath of the Skies, because the Witch Enchanter we have in hand deals 3 damage to come into play untapped. So maybe it's just going to have to be a basic land or a shock at minimum to be able to stay in this game, because at that point, in response to the Wrath, Goblin Bombardment might deal most of the damage required. So we see Solitude target the Ocelot Pride. Pitcher failure.
Yeah, it's just like 1 turn delayed. It feels like if you had like a Wrath for 4 mana this turn, it might have been fine. Then you just like take away the bombardment. The only thing that stays is the Johnny. Then the Boros player makes 1 token. So, but I think this point is probably just difficult. And I guess the Ephemerate will trade for another. Just the Thraben Charm.
We see Thraben Charm in response to just not even get another trigger. This is just counting gold at this point in all the ways for, and we see the handshake there.
Yes, Boros Energy is showing strong as always.
Yeah, and this is why it's such a good choice for even on the days where Boros Energy might not be the best choice in the room, you can still have draws like we just saw, which is going to be hard for any deck to keep up with, even if they're on a full 7 cards. It's proper flexing its muscles there.
Yeah, I mean, like I recently noticed that generally speaking, like a lot of the cards are actually like still sort of like combo cards. Just having the synergy between like Ocelot Pride and Soul Guide, God of Souls is like really strong, and the same with like Goblin Bombardment and Ajani. Also to some degree, Ajani and God of Souls, or the Voice of Victory with God of Souls. Like all of those like things are like very, very strong combinations. However, if the deck draws like some of the cards individually, sometimes they feel like very, very weak. But so I think one of the best strategies still is to just play a bunch of spot removal, because if you can pick apart the right creatures at the right timing, especially at instant speed, you can pick the deck apart quite a bit. But I feel like while I was like playing Breach, when you don't have like that many removal spells, like it was really hard to like if you don't draw like one of them to like pick apart your strategy, you just sometimes just get steamrolled and killed on turn 3.
Exactly.
It's like some like multiple pride draws with like a guide, then like it's just absurd like how much tokens they can produce in like 1-2 turns.
Yeah, it's crazy, especially when from the Breach point of view, Boros is meant to be quite weak into combo. But then how is a combo deck meant to keep up with those draws, especially given the power of Breach as well? Like that's why I do like Boros Energy so much as a choice for a modern event at the moment. I'm interested to see how the Prowess matchup is, because obviously Prowess is the new hotness into the modern scene due to the new Tarkir set. So I'm interested to see how the prowess matchup is. But yeah, Boris still looking fantastically strong.
Yeah, I think so. If you have a look at the Boris energy deck list, maybe again while we're at this. So, yes, I think. I mean, if you think about it, most of the creatures do have like very low toughness points, like the Ocelot Pride and the Ragavan in particular. So if you play a card like Lava Dart in the prowess deck, of course it's going to be pretty strong against a deck like this, especially if the plan of the Boros Energy deck, for the most part, is to get like these combinations of two very strong creatures together, and you have like a lot of cheap interaction. Then that can be very very strong. Though the big question for me still is the Boros Energy deck, to me at least, doesn't seem like a deck that is very good at handling like cheap interaction like the Galvanic Discharge, or also Static Prison, Fraven Charm, things like this. Like when your creatures get picked apart, it's questionable how good it can withstand. And also the Flage, of course, is probably, I guess the front side is just a Lightning Helix, but the back side is going to be really devastating for the Prowess deck, I assume. So it's really hard to predict how the matchup really plays out in the end. So I will have to play it myself also a bit.
It feels like both decks have the appropriate tools to fight each other with, and it might just be a bit of a race or a bit of a, as you've already touched upon, getting no synergies together as quickly as possible and not hoping for disruption. Flage with Arena of Glory to give it haste seems a really tough line for the prowess deck to deal with. But even having said that, Corey, Steel Cutter, and Slickshot Show-Offs can deal incredible amounts of damage from nowhere. So I could see that even with a line like that, that the prowess deck's able to take it. One thing that worries me about the Boros list we just saw, or maybe Boros in general, is we saw the spot removal for creatures, which the prowess deck has an abundance of with Dragon Blazer Channelers, Slickshot Show-Offs, but only one sorcery speed answer for Corey Steel Cutter, which is just proven to be such a powerhouse of a card.
Yes.
In Static Prison, which doesn't answer something forever. So I think that it can really come down to Corey Steel Cutter in that matchup. Because have you had the chance to play with Steel Cutter yet?
Yeah, I played it a bit. It does feel very strong, but you also like need to really commit to the deck. I feel like to like have a lot of cheap spells to make the card really really strong.
I
But
agree.
if you do, I mean, like these decks love to play like cards like Swift Spear, and it's basically a Swift Spear every turn. So with haste, so
yeah,
it's incredibly strong. I think one thing to point out is also the mutagenic growth. Like Boros Energy is still like a red deck with the Discharge and the Flage, so it can still blank some of the removal spells very effectively. So that's, I think, another thing that makes the prowess deck like be very well set up, I think.
agreed.
But I'm not sure. That's just like based on just experiencing decklists. I really haven't played it yet. I think, and next week at the Axion Mega Modern, I will be playing Prowess maybe as well.
All right.
Because I think it just seems to be a deck that suits my playstyle and also very well. It's very powerful. So I might give it a shot. And I think also like own most of the cards. So yeah. Yes. Speaking of which, maybe we can quickly talk a bit more about our tournament series, which is called European Unity League. If you haven't heard about it, it's a new type of series where all events across Europe can participate and award points from like the smallest pre-release or FNM up until the largest regional championship. And each event gets one of the four types: local, regional, qualifier, or Grand Prix, which will define how many points you get. So for the smallest tier, the local events, you get 1 times as many points, 3 times for regional, 5 times for qualifier, and 6 times for Grand Prix. And yeah, today we have a qualifier in front of us, which is a special kit that organizers can purchase, which comes with a bunch of cool prizes, like those awesome products from Heavy Play, if you've seen them, or altered flooded strands, and also a cool trophy. And the best part about it is the first person qualifies directly for the European Magic Cup, which is a big finals, which is going to be a team event in 3 different formats that is kind of like a throwback to the old Worlds or World Magic Cup, where we also had like national teams represent their country, usually each playing a different format. And yes, but that's not all. We're going to host a national championship in each country that qualifies to this awesome cup. And the way to qualify for it is through the points that you grind across Europe. And yeah, have you had the chance, Sam? Have you had a chance to play in some of the um, Unity League events and collect some points? Or
No, sadly at the moment I haven't really had the chance, but I'm just starting off as I guess that my future as a grinder, and there are definitely going to be some events I'm looking to get down because yeah, more opportunities to play competitive Magic is never a bad thing. And you had me at the old school world system with team trios. I think that's such a lovely, beautiful format to play in. And if you do badly, at least you're with your friends, or I hope friends in that situation. But I've got no points at the moment, but I'm really looking forward to giving it a go and trying to get some.
yeah, so I can also tell you that the next week Axion Mega Modern will also count as a EUL Grand Prix with 6 times multiplier. So we will definitely be able to get quite a bit of points there.
Well, if I do well, which is hopefully, but yeah. So I'm going to be playing Axion's event next weekend as well, and hopefully I'll pick up some points while I'm there.
Yeah, for sure. I will be there as well, and yeah, hopefully we can get the energy a bit going in the UK, so we can also get some more organizers on board, so that we can host a proper national championship in the UK as well. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to this event, and yeah, before yeah, without further ado, I guess we go to a quick break. And we'll be back with round number 7, the last round before top 8. And yeah, see you in a bit.
See you in a bit.
Hey everyone, we're back from the Mole EUL qualifier and destination qualifier. Modern today from Modena, and we're on the way with round 7, which is the last round of the Swiss, and probably winning in for top 8. Let's go to the stream. There we go. And we have Amulet Titan versus Affinity, I believe. And yes, it seems we are already started. And it seems to be turn 2 or 3 of the. It's probably a turn 2 of the Affinity player. Yeah, I think the Amulet Titan player played a turn 1 Greens on Zenith to get a Dryad Arbor and a turn 2 Spelunking. Potentially, but how did they play the Analyst then? Or maybe the Affinity player also missed the land drop. Well, let's see. Batia plays a Mox Opal and a Portable Hoe, and has the Affinity enabled for the Mox Opal to now play. Hopefully, the first impactful card. And not so that's a Glass Casket to exile the Dryad Arbor of Mateo, and Terry to try to disrupt him as much as possible. So, how likely is so Sam? How do you think? How likely is it that the Amulet Titan deck can combo off this turn already? Now,
Well, Amulet Titan is a deck of science, so it all depends on the player. Honestly, I can see that at this stage you don't accidentally perform well with Amulet Titan. So the Affinity deck has done what it's had to, and it's answered the really scary threats, especially up the curve. So Spelunking is essentially Amulet of Vigor copies 4-8. It's been a really impressive card, and I think their ability to combo off really stems from, do we see one of those famous Amulet Titan bounce lands come into play this turn? I can see the Amulet Titan player doing a little bit of face up maths, so it looks like we might be getting the engine going, and there we see it.
So that's 4 mana or +1, so 5 mana. What do you think Mateo can cast this turn with those 5 mana?
It depends. If we see something like an Arboreal Grazer in hand, Scapeshift is pretty strong here. Scapeshift being able to essentially go sacrifice all lands in play, go get a Kavu land and maybe a Teleria West, and then we can transmute the Teleria West to go get Summon us back to the Titan, and then the engine really gets started. What's interesting so far, though, is we see typically Amulet Titan plays the one-off investigator to get the ball rolling and essentially go infinite from there, infinite in quotation marks. But Scapeshift for 3 lands isn't the strongest Scapeshift in the world, but typically you want 4 or so in there. And we see the Hanweir battlements in the graveyard. So what I imagine we're going to see here is get Beseiju, bounce the Beseiju to hand. We've generated a bunch of mana, then use Beseiju to destroy the portable hold to get that creature back, the analyst, and then really go off from there. Or maybe the Beseiju is already hiding out in hand.
So I think the reason why he doesn't go for this line is because his opponent has a Tormod script. So you don't want.
Oh, very true. Yeah.
The analyst because the graveyard is there. But so I assume that it's actually a Titan that is trying to cast in this case, which makes sense given the fact that he cannot use the graveyard.
Yep. I have to say, a very impressive start from this Affinity deck to be able to keep up with the curve there.
Yeah. So that's a
Green Sun Zenith.
For how much?
So we had.
Well, it's actually 7.
6.
I mean, I guess the Scapeshift uses quite a bit of mana. And then we have a Valakut and a the haste land to. Oh no, the haste land is in the graveyard.
Yeah, it's in the graveyard. So
There's the, what is it called?
Echoing Depths, to be able to copy a land in the graveyard.
To copy the Henry battlements to give haste to the Titan.
So it's actually a really interesting interaction here. I believe the Echoing Depths enters as, so there's no trigger for the Tormod's Crypt to respond to.
Yeah, makes sense. So you would have to. So this means you would have to respond in response of
the Green Sun Zenith or the Amulet. Oh, sorry, the Primeval Titan trigger. And now that the Tormod's Crypt has been cracked, we see the Boseiju likely what we were discussing to free the Aftermath Analyst from the hole and then potentially go off from there.
Yeah. So what does he need? What do he need to win the following turn? I guess just another skill shift or something, or like a Lotus Field. I guess you can just get the Lotus Field with the Titan as well if you just attack.
Yeah, with Titan in play and Analyst in play, it's difficult to not cobble together a win from that position. And as I said, to be here around 7, it's the Amulet player knows how to play the deck. And I would be very surprised if we couldn't get a win together from here. But is that a Piffin Needle? Probably naming the Analyst?
Or the Boseiju. Depends on whether Matteo is responding here. But yeah, so we'll see what's probably better response. We'll see soon whether the Analyst was named or anything else. So that's a Kappa Cannoneer.
Wow.
Yes. So most likely the Boseiju was actually named because we don't see it being cast here.
I have to say, what an incredible game this has been already.
So I presume that's a Green Sun Zenith for the Dryad to then just the Valakut for lethal.
It could be for Dryad, it could be for another Primeval Titan. I think all roads lead to Rome from that position, really.
Yeah, I think Matteo specifically showed the Dryad.
To
mention that this would have been his intention to do. All right, Ari was able to have a look at the deck list, so we can just quickly switch to them. So here we have the Emerald Titan deck by Matteo Brevedelli.
Amulet Titan is always such an interesting deck list to look at, isn't it? It's a bunch of one-ofs, a bunch of lands, and then some very strong green-coloured creatures at the end there. Taking a look at the sideboard, we've got Paducah Bog, an Ottawa Soaring City Collector Roof, Keen-Eye Curator, 3 copies of Dismember, an Endurance, a 6, a Tireless Tracker, a Vampire's Vengeance, and a Force of Vigor. So from my side, obviously, Force of Vigors are a slam dunk here, being able to answer essentially almost everything from the affinity side. I also quite like the Ottawa to be able to potentially save an Aftermath Analyst or hit a Prism piece like Piff Needle. And I also obviously Collector Roof really strong here in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, the Emerald Titan seems to have Emerald Titan deck seems to have all the tools necessary to win this matchup specifically. But let's have a look at the Affinity deck from Mattia Zapparoli. So, what do you think is? We have 3 Consigned to Memory, 2 Dispatch, 4 Hero Might, 3 Demisphere, and 3 Whip Flare. Which of these cards do you particularly like in this matchup?
Oh, it's a very strong sideboard. We've just seen all the answers, but it feels like there's all the answers in the sideboard here as well. So it depends how Matteo wants to approach the matchup. There's a couple of ways you can go about it. First of all, 3 Damping Sphere, fantastic against Amulet Titan. It turns off the bounce lands because they tap for 2. Instead, they just produce colorless. Haywire Might's very strong. It can hit Urza Saga. It can hit Spelunking. It can hit, most importantly, Amulet of Vigor. You can bring in the Dispatches as a 1-mana removal spell for the Analyst, because if that's exiled, we don't play another one, so that's gone forever, or obviously just for an Amulet Titan or Cultivate Colossus. And you can even get very cute with a card like Consign to Memory. You can counter Amulet of Vigor, you can counter a Primeval Titan Enter the Battlefield trigger, and you can also counter the third chapter of Urza's Saga so that you don't get to go fetch an Amulet from there as well. So a very strong sideboard, and I'd probably bring those in.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, the only card that's definitely stinkers the Whip Flare, but
yeah,
cards are strong. So like, it's really going to be interesting to see which cards are being boarded out, because seems like will be one of those matchups that are probably bad for the deck. So the match cyber is specifically built to beat a deck like Amulet Titan.
For sure, and definitely the sideboard to do that with.
So let's see. I'm curious how we will sideboard. Let's go back to the streaming table and see how the game 2 plays out.
If I were to guess, I think you can probably trim some of the heavier affinity cards like Fort Monitor. That's not really what this matchup is about. The matchup's very quick, very aggressive, and both players are looking to end the game as quickly as possible. It's all about if Matai is going to be able to keep up with the Amulet Titan draw. And we have to bear in mind, and I'm sure that the affinity side is Force of Vigor is going to be an ever-looming threat over this entire game. So it's all about how we're going to be able to navigate through a potential Force of Vigor as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's also like at least 4 Visages, I assume. I have 3 or 4 Visages in the Titan list always. So
yeah,
it's also just another tough card to play through.
At least you can Metallic Rebuke a Force of Vigor, but Visages is really, really strong card. And even again, that Otawara potentially also operating as a uncountable interaction piece is going to be, we'll see how it goes, but it should be very strong from Mateo's side.
Yeah, so let's see how it's out. I wonder what's like the best sort of Affinity deck to get in this game. I guess if you can like pick up an early Amulet with the portable hole and then follow it up with some kind of threat, that's probably the what you're looking for. That's the
yeah. One thing I'd really like to see from the Affinity side is a fast Emery. A fast Emery into Disruption, it should be really strong start, because then if there is a Force of Vigor or there is a Beseju for those pivotal pieces like Portable Hole and maybe even something like Pithing Needle, then Emery can just buy it back. If Emery's able to buy back at something like a Damping Sphere, that could be really strong.
For sure, yeah. So that said, like, I mean, Amulet Titan will probably only need the dampings, like to kill the damage sphere for 1 turn. Like Emery can only bring it back so to speed, right? Or how do you think about this?
It depends. Amulet Titan can sometimes, obviously, everyone remembers the bad beat story of when the Amulet player or opponent got 3 Amulets in play and won all at once. But the deck is land heavy, and we've seen a mulligan to 6. So it typically only needs 1 turn, but sometimes, especially with a clock from Affinity as well, that window might be very short.
Yes, and we see it right there, like Arboreal Grazer versus Saga. Already having 2 lands on the first turn is always nice, especially when it's like the strongest, or one of the strongest lands versus Saga to have on turn 1.
Especially when that Saga represents an Amulet of Vigor very, very quickly as well. It always surprises me how quickly Urza's Saga turns into a monster in games of Modern. It's such a strong card. Tamio's going to get on in there and make a clue.
Yeah. So Tamio, what do you think about Tamio in the Affinity deck? Is it it's one of the better cards, or is it like I mean it's not the deck itself, or
it's very, very strong, and it's a matchup like this might be a little slow for exactly this matchup, But an unanswered Tamio in a match where it can't be answered is just it can really, really take over a game. Would you have blocked with the Arboreal Grazer there to send a message?
I mean, why not?
Yeah.
I usually ask my opponents if they want to block with their Grazers when I attack with Tamio. So
that's sending a message. I love that.
yes.
We do see a consigned memory in the graveyard as well, milled over by the Emery.
Yes, and a Mox Opal and a Kappa Cannoneer, so everything's at the disposal. The Emerald Titan player just passes with a Gruul Turf this turn, so probably hoping to get going next turn when the Saga pops off and the Emerald comes. So we see the Mox Opal being returned and a Haywire Might, which is, of course, a very strong card to pick off the Ursa Saga in this position.
Definitely, and with the Emery there as well, this Emery is going to have to be answered at some point. Otherwise, we're going to see maybe a Haywire Might every turn, or every turn that there's something relevant in play. And with the Mox Opal as well, we can see a Haywire Might cast, and then it can just sit in play until it needs to hit a Spelunkin or an Amulet of Vigor, or maybe even another Urza Saga.
Yes. So there we have the Spelunking that, as you mentioned. Oh, does it get? Oh, it gets Metallic Rebuked.
Wow.
I see. Yeah, tapping the 2 clues for mana in that sense is very strong.
Yeah.
So then we just see a pass from the Titan player, and let's see if the Affinity player can finally bring on some pressure, trying to win this game, because so far we've only seen card advantage and interaction. Tamio is thinking about attacking.
I'm interested to see how Mattia approaches this turn with the Emery, especially with the Kappa Cannoneer in the graveyard there. So it could be a line where maybe they don't feel confident enough to deploy a threat and go for the Haywire Might again just to buy another turn. And that's what we see.
Yeah. I mean, it might also be that there's already a Kappa Cannoneer in the hand.
Oh, very true. I think...
Yeah. Oh, wait, actually, I think I want to not play the Saber. I'll instead just play the Kappa Cannoneer. So what is happening? Are you now arguing whether he already played? I think they're now calling a judge and arguing whether he already played the Hiramai. But I think its theory is like too late to do it, to bring it back, because the Emery requires targeting.
Yeah.
And you also, yeah. But I mean, the opponent can always allow it. So but you need to tap the Emery, sir, to play this Kappa Cannoneer. But I guess if he doesn't attack, if it doesn't matter much. All right. Oh, so the reason for not to play to attack with Tamio first is because you get an additional counter. If you tap something else, you get an additional counter from the clue when the Tamio attacks. But I assume he's keeping up like something like another Metallic Rebuke, maybe. That's why he.
Yeah, that probably suggests why it was tapped like that, and I think that was definitely a turn that was played as if there was one more piece of interaction, whether it was a consigned memory for a trigger or a Metallic Rebuke for a spell. But yeah, it definitely smells like Mattia's even more interaction for this game, and with a Kappa Cannoneer in play, that might only have to be the case for a couple more turns.
Yeah, so you see Tamio and the Kappa Cannoneer attacking. You get another clue to make another counter and give the Kappa Cannoneer unblockability. Which, yeah. Have you ever had the experience to play against Kappa Cannoneer before?
I have. It's such a strong magic card, and we saw. I particularly like to play combo decks, so I can't answer threats anyway, And Kappa Cannoneer is like typically a very, very strong threat. So it's never a card I really want to see opposite from it. And that's just the game. But it's the perfect type of threat for this affinity deck. We saw in Mateo Sideboard, it was removal spells, Force of Vigors. But if you can have a disruptive start and then be able to land your Kappa Cannoneer, let's say there was a Besagio in the hand there, can't answer. It's got Ward 4, which is just a huge ward cost. And it can come down as quick as turn 2 or turn 3. It's just the perfect threat for the affinity deck.
Definitely, yeah. It's also like, yeah, just the fact that it costs 6 mana is, I think, important, because you often like lose to cards like Meltdown and Wrath of the Skies, and being able to have this threat that still can win post being wrapped your whole board and mostly also the mana base, and it's definitely a very strong card to have.
I must be honest, I've not really been sold on the affinity deck since the Mox Opal unban. I think that the original builds of it were very much trying to figure out the best cards to play and in what quantities and what numbers, because something like that can really matter for affinity. But I really like this list that we're seeing now. It seems to be perfectly crafted, and I have to say, in that game, looked absolutely incredible.
Yeah, we can have a look at it again. I mean, it definitely has like a lot of power in terms of beating like the specific list. I mean, you have the Damning Sphere and the Haywire Might and the Consign, everything to be ready for the ML attack. It's
I also like, just after Underworld Breach got banned, the big question on a lot of modern players' minds were, what's the next best Mox Opal deck? And I think now we have a couple of front runners for what that could potentially be. And I really want to see if this affinity deck can stand the test of the meta and punch through and become a mainstay, because it's a really cool deck.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I'm still on the hunt for the best Mox Opal, Tameo, Emery, Mox Ember deck, and I feel like the lists that we've seen so far were not like they haven't proven themselves yet. I think the Cheska Sensi deck appears to be the one that is the most promising up until now. Yep. But even that deck raises some doubts, I feel, in terms of like its consistency, it's against interaction, like Wrath of the Skies and things like that.
The best card from that deck is the new 3-mana Narset, but enough about Narset. Urza's Saga into Amulet of Vigor on the draw, that's definitely not where you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything in turn 1 to interact with that. So we really need to see. I mean, I guess there can be. He can play like a Haywire Might with a Mox Opal. That would work. But otherwise, it will take at least for. Oh yeah, true. There's also Portable, which is not a bad start. So let's see if the Titan can follow it up with another strong effect. No, it's just that Valakut and pass.
It might be the explosive turn 3, especially if this Urza Saga is going to turn into an Amulet of Vigor next turn. But it might be that consign trick we mentioned before.
Yeah. Or a Haywire Might. He has to. He played the Spire of Industry, which will provide him with green mana. So let's see what 2 mana. What could that be? Oh, it could be a Damping Sphere, I guess. And it is a Damping Sphere.
Yeah.
Wisely playing out the Mox Opal the first, so you don't have to pay extra for your 0 mana cards.
Yeah, I definitely would have missed that, so well played.
Oh, there's a voice figure immediately as a follow-up, though. Presumably targeting both of those artifacts. But you could also target the portable hoe. Oh yeah, that's particularly strong.
And this is, if this Urza Saga is now going to turn into a second amulet, and this play suggests to me that there's a win on the table. And there we go.
Did he just concede? I assume he just conceded there.
Yeah. I think there was some sportsmanship on the tail end. Look, here's my hand. Here's what I've got. Would you like me to play it out, or are you happy to scoop there? And I think that Mateo went, "Yep, I'll scoop to that."
Yeah, surprising to me. Like personally, I would always just like first see if they have the bounce land and the Titan or something like this at least, because like sometimes they have like 3 amulets but like no bounce land, and then the deck just takes forever to win.
Yeah, true.
So,
I think
didn't really have to kill on the table. But
I think it was shown, just or maybe discussed, or but
maybe, yeah, that might very well be. All right, let's come back to the caster booth quickly. Well, was definitely an interesting match, and congratulations to Matteo to presumably making it to the top 8. And yeah, so maybe we can quickly again talk about the European Unity League. It's a new tournament series that's been running since the start of 2025, and it's kind of like a throwback to many of the things that we had in Magic in the past. So you have something like Planeswalker points, all the events, war points from the smallest FNM up until the largest conventions, and then there's going to be a national championship in each country, or at least in most of the European countries, for which you can qualify through these points that you collect at any of these events. And from there, you go to the European Magic Cup, which is like a throwback to the old World Championships or the World Magic Cup, where there will be national teams competing against each other, but it is also going to be an individual stage. There's going to be 3 formats represented. And the first one is already announced, which is Modern, and 2 more will be announced soon. And yeah, that's in a nutshell. That's how it's shaping up. Today we have a Qualifier event, which is a special type of event with a 5 times multiplier, which means you get 5 times as many points compared to like your local FNMs and pre-release. And the clue is also that you not only get a direct invite to the European Magic Cup, but there's also like a bunch of cool prizes, like a trophy and altered flooded strands and some products from Heavy Play, our sponsor. Yes, and any store can host one of these awesome events. If they would like, they can sign up for it. And yeah. Cool. That's, I think, then all of us for this round. There might be a backup feature match. Let me quickly check.
Those flooded strands are amazing as well, by the way.
Yeah, I think there's no backup feature match for this round, it appears. So we will go on to a quick ad break, and then see see later for the top 8. Yeah, I mean, about the flooded strands, yeah, they're altered with like a special sleeve, which is like printed on it, and then you can just put a normal card on it, and then this allows us to kind of like make our own promo card, and we hand those out, and they're since it's just like essentially an altered card, they're also tournament legal, so you can just play them in your deck. I mean, I wouldn't advise to play them at the Pro Tour, just like you wouldn't play any other altered or foil card at the very, very high level or high stakes events. But other than that, it will work pretty well. All right, thanks for watching, everyone, and see you soon at the top 8 for this event.
See you for the top 8. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We're actually sorry to inform you that we've actually misunderstood. There's no top 8 for this event, it appears. So we'll end the stream at this point. But thanks, everyone, for watching. Be sure to subscribe to us on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, whatever you're watching from. And yeah, stay tuned to other broadcasts from us. And make sure to check out our website about our tournament series. And yeah, I'm Yari Wrench. This is Sam Milner. Thank you for coming on to the stream today, Sam. It was a pleasure having you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm always happy to talk about Magic, and especially Modern. I love it. And yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thanks. And looking forward to casting with you again. All right. Goodbye to everyone at home. It was a pleasure to having you today. And yeah, see you soon for another broadcast. Bye.
See you soon. Bye. Bye.